Ah, yes, the weekend press conference. Let's see what Governor Hochul's up to.
1:01 p.m. today, the U.S. Department of Transportation emailed us a letter from Secretary Duffy announcing their attempt to end the congestion pricing program in the state of New York. At 1:58 p.m., President Donald Trump tweeted, "Long live the king." I'm here to say New York hasn't labored under a king in over 250 years. And we sure as hell are not going to start now.
Wow, that really got under her skin. Wait till she sees what we're going to do with the Department of Justice. And live from Times Square.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Vostradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Straight ahead, breaking news in the Ukraine, KT McFarland. Children who face tragic fear, Paul Jacobs. One of the sketch comedic stars of our time, Nick Peterson, is here. Gather 25 is just around the corner. Jennie Allen gives us the latest. Sketch comedy from Not a Parody, Nick Peterson and Al Berry. And she's back, the OG artist in the new music spotlight, Lindsay L. And now, from Times Square, he may not be a king, he may not be a prince, but he is a man who coughs in the face of congestion pricing, at least when he's congested. From Times Square, here. That's not a very pleasant picture, Dave. Nobody wants to talk about me coughing in the face of anything. I don't like coughing. I don't like people that cough in my face. I do think that Kathy Hochul, in that little opening clip there, has about the least amount of self-awareness of any politician I've ever seen. You understand that she is standing there in front of New York's taxpayers, saying we're going to defy the man in America who's actually fighting to save you, the people that are in this room attending this press conference. He's attempting to save you money and to put government in check and to limit the power of government. And all of these just little lemmings just wildly applaud. Yay, go, Kathy. And she makes some joke about being a king. He says that stuff because he knows there's this element, the Joe Walsh creepsters of the world, that are out there trying to make him saying that he is a king a thing, and it's not a thing. And now she's out there. We fought a king 250 years ago. We're fighting again. We're not going to take it from a king. We don't serve a king. Kathy, you just incited an entire crowd of people to cheer and applaud loudly for you to rob them blind more. And let me just let the rest of the country in on a little secret. You already have to pay $16 by whatever road you go into New York City from somewhere else. If you're coming from New Jersey or Connecticut or where, at minimum, you're going to pay $16 to get into the city limits of New York City. In addition to that now, what President Trump just canceled, and she can't do anything about it. She can stand there and call him a king and have her press conference, do whatever she wants. She can't do anything about this. She needed President Biden's approval to make the plan work, and it does not work unless the federal extension of the president's office agrees to it, and he's no longer agreeing to it. So it's done. So here's the bottom line. She can have her press conference. She can talk all this insane lunacy that she wants to, but she's not going to get her way. But I want you to see inside her soul. Because for those people that pay $16 to go into the city, it's another $9 just to turn down one avenue and go into Midtown. $9 more. Now, for people that work second and third shifts that are getting paid very low wages and can't take public transportation at that hour for safety or because things aren't running, this has been a horrendous experiment for them. Because people that need to take their cars are being charged $45 more a week just to go to work. And they get nothing in return for it. So the president nixed it. But Kathy, we'll fight the king. Meanwhile, the lemmings, yeah, we're going to fight the king. And that's a really small detail in the overall arc of life. Because that's just silliness and kind of stupidity to see all of that displayed the way it is. What is not silly or stupid is what happened in the return of the 4 hostages that were supposed to happen this week, when thousands and thousands and thousands of not uniformed Hamas fighters, but good old regular Palestinians that we were told, oh, they're a peaceful people. They want to have peace. They're just subverted by Hamas. Thousands of them came out of their, whatever you call what they live in, and cheered as the bodies of 2 dead babies that were killed by these monsters were returned to Israel. And one of the promised people they said would return with them was the baby's mom, and the body they tried to pass off as hers wasn't hers. IDF went through the DNA. It's not hers. Not sure how to deal with it. They broke their word. Friends, I don't have a lot of hope for any of the hostages that are left, and I know that there are quite a few. But these are not good people. And they have done very not good things. And they have to be stopped. That October 7th can never happen again. September 11th can never happen again. And the thing that the September 11th and the October 7th people all have in common is that they believe that they have the right to kill everyone that disagrees with them. That's part of their doctrinal theology. And it's wrong. President Trump's not going to let it happen. And we shouldn't be tolerating it either. My heart's very heavy. Normally, I try to start the show on a light note, try to have fun time. It's hard to get past dead babies being returned to their parents, to their family. It's hard to get past stealing the dead body of the mom that you promised to return, and then trying to pass someone else off as her. And by the way, we don't know who the identity of the other dead body is. IDF doesn't have a track record of that person's DNA for whatever reason. So there's so many problems with the Gaza situation. So the more I hear about maybe disbanding the people that live there, sending them elsewhere, sending them to countries that want them and that identify with their plight, do it. Let's remake that strip of land into something that is useful and healthy and good for the rest of the world. Let's put a U.S. air base there. Let's have a presence in the region. It'll make a big difference, and I think that we have the will in the White House to get that done this time, this go around. I'm hopeful on the very least. By the way, we've got a great show for you coming up. KT McFarland is here. She has not been with us for quite a while, but speaking of war, that's what's going on in Gaza. What's going on with Ukraine? Why is Zelensky crying one day, "Oh, you've betrayed us," and the next day, "I'll do anything I can to find a peace agreement." Does it have to do with the strength of the U.S.'s position in the negotiations with Secretary Rubio and Secretary Waltz and the Vice President, President Trump himself weighing in where necessary, laying the groundwork? Are we about to see a major peace deal done in Ukraine and Russia? I hope so. I think so. She will give us the very latest on it. And a little bit later, you know that guy that does those sketches here called Nick Peterson, and he does so many of them. He's with us tonight. We got him. He's going to join us. He loves the show, and he loves to be part of it, and we're glad to have him. Plus, she won the very first new music spotlight we had, Lindsay L., the very first artist, the very first week that That Kevin Show was on the air. She's back. It's her fourth visit. Stay with us. It's all straight ahead.
From New York, that Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us every week on radio and very often here on television and radio. I get to speak with KT McFarland, who is one of our real insightful resources in terms of telling us what's going on from a national security perspective. And KT, it's good to see you again. Thanks for coming back. I've been getting pelted a lot by some of my center-left friends saying things like, we've dealt a gut punch to Ukraine. We're abandoning American values on the international stage. Vance, well, you saw what Margaret Brennan said on Face the Nation or CBS Sunday Morning, whatever it was, and she said he stood where free speech launched a genocide and did the same thing. I've heard oversimplifications. I've heard outright distortions. I've heard completely made up weird stuff from a CBS news anchor. What is the real story of what we're doing on a national security front, particularly in the Russia-Ukraine angle right now, because there does seem to be a lot of attention focused there?
Well, I think that for many years, really going back 20 years, but certainly since the beginning of the Ukraine war, this version of the Ukraine war, we've been on autopilot. It's the country, the United States, has been run not by a president making decisions, but by a sort of amorphous foreign policy blob, nameless, faceless, but they all think the same way. They've always thought the same way. They don't do anything differently. And President Trump was elected by 77 million people to make a change. And the change he's making is to face reality. Here's the reality. The blob that I talked about, they don't want a peace agreement with Ukraine. In fact, they would say to the Ukrainians, and the Europeans would join in, to say, we can't have a negotiated solution because we can't trust Putin. We can't trust Russia. Therefore, let's not go to the negotiating table. We're going to win. But yet, there was no plan to win. In fact, as you see, over the last 2 years, certainly, Russia's winning this war, not Ukraine. And even with all the resources we've given to Ukraine.
But they're winning it an inch at the time. And that's why I think
it's like an inch at a time. And it's horrible. It's destructive. But Russia is winning. And no matter how much, we can't do anymore as the United States to give more weapons. The only thing we could do differently is we could have a NATO-Russia war. Or we could join militarily with Ukraine. And that's just not going to happen. So I think when President Trump and all the people around him have come out and said, let's face reality. We need a negotiated solution. Now, the details will be to be determined. But if you look at how President Trump has struck deals in the past, he's not going to just say, okay, Russia, here's everything you want. And he's certainly not going to say the same to Ukraine. He's looking for a bigger relationship, I think, with Russia. And that's what all these people are failing to grasp. When President Trump's, Marco Rubio, National Security Advisor, are meeting in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia with a Russian foreign minister, they're not just talking about Ukraine. They're talking about a bigger relationship. And when President Trump has said one of the great tragedies of the last 4 years under the Biden administration is that the Biden administration has pushed Russia and China and North Korea and Iran closer together. So that they're a pretty formidable alliance. Now, is there anything the United States and President Trump can do to put a crack in that? Maybe that's what they're talking about in Saudi Arabia with the Russians as well. Not just Ukraine, but about a bigger realignment of a relationship for the United States.
Let me depart on that direct topic for a second, because in past conversations you have spoken with me about the aftermath of Ukraine, and you've talked about how Putin and Ukraine will be in very different places once this negotiated end comes, and that the West, even though if they don't give Ukraine, NATO membership, that they're going to be very interested in investing and rebuilding. Putin's going to have almost no political capital to return home with. How do you still size up the aftermath in kind of that shorthand? Yeah, even more so. I mean, President Trump has already been talking to Zelensky back and forth about what United States involvement would be post-fight. When the dust is settled, would the United States invest in Ukraine's rare earth minerals, for example? Ukraine is very resource rich. It's agriculturally rich, but it's resource rich as well. And so President Trump has even put on the table a potential deal between the United States and Ukraine to develop their undeveloped rare earth minerals. Now, why rare earth minerals? Why are they important to us? China has the kind of corners the world market on rare earth minerals. They have like 90%. We have very little. The reason they're important is they're essential for microprocessing. They're essential for any kind of modern communications, your computers, your cell phones, smart everything, and certainly for AI. So we're already talking to Ukraine about what that post-war environment would look like. And we're already talking to them about an economic relationship. And when you think about it, think for a minute. If the United States is investing a lot of money to develop Ukraine's mineral resources, and has close economic relations with Ukraine, do you really think the United States is going to stand by while a Russia, which is weaker than it has ever been before, is going to try to invade all of Europe? No, it's not going to happen, because the United States will be intricately involved, not just on a piece of paper, but will have economic ties that will not be broken easily. How much does any of this change if we add an air base to the Gaza region or develop one more military footprint? We had one in Kabul, but we lost that, or in Afghanistan rather, but we lost that in the exit. But if we add another base of operations, does that also seem to put pause in someone like Putin's thinking? Look, we're talking about transforming the entire relationship, whether it's in Europe or whether it's in the Middle East. And when President Trump talks about let's redevelop Gaza in a very different way, let's completely rethink what Gaza would be. One of the things that we've talked about is a port. It's not the Mediterranean. Would the United States have an interest in that port? The other thing we're talking about Ukraine, presumably, is Ukraine's Black Sea ports. Would the United States, in many ways, have more access to that part of the world because of trade? Well, these will be used for trade, not necessarily for war. But would we have more access to those regions, Middle East and Central Europe, if we do have ports? Yeah, it's all part of the same conversation. And remember, if you're Saudi Arabia, if you're Iran, if you're Russia, you're looking at the American energy capacity to dominate the world's energy industry, bring down prices, which is great for the American economy, but it's devastating for the Iranian economy. It's devastating for Russia. And frankly, it's devastating for the Saudis and the other Gulf Arabs. So they're all going to have to look at a very different relationship. They can no longer count on high oil prices to fund their governments, their societies, and their wars. They've got to diversify. And one way you diversify is by having peace in your region. Yeah, specifically funding the wars, because it wasn't until energy spiked that Russia invaded, and then the mullahs got very, very playful in the Middle East. Not playful, that's a terrible word, but they got mischievous with what they wanted to accomplish. As you see everything from like the Gulf of America controversy to the discussion of Greenland and Canada and an upper passage, but also as it relates to what former Senator Rubio, now Secretary Rubio, and the cabinet official Mike Waltz and others that are out advancing this front. Do you see progress being made? Is there and I'm not even asking if they like it, because, the Canadians are now booing us in all of the hockey matches that our Team USA is playing in. But is there a respect that is being sewn back into the equation that had just been replaced by just utter laughter in the last 4 years? Yeah, there's a vibe shift. And we'll find out what that shifting vibe is all about. Stay with us. More That Kevin Show next.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
When this negotiated peace is done, what does a weakened Putin do in Russia? How does his position, because he's going to have probably 1 million casualties by that point, that he personally took into battle and said, we're going to go do this. He may carve out the Russian speaking portions of far eastern Ukraine, but that's about it. Not a lot to show for all that effort. What happens to him politically? Does he stay on the stage? How do you see that working?
I would never underestimate the ability of Vladimir Putin to claim that this is a great success. And who cares if he claims it's a success? That's for his own political domestic consumption. I'm sure he'll spin.
But if he loses 1 million people and he loses the energy sector that has propped him up, he's going to be in a strangely different world than when he went to war.
Yes, he will be, and it only gets worse with time. But he'll spin it as the war is a success, that they're getting Mother Russia back, their empire is increasing. The kick and the hit of the economic hit that'll come from reduced oil revenues, that's not going to happen right away. It'll be over time. The problem that Vladimir Putin is going to have is he's got China. Now, he'll have no partnership is stronger than the Chinese-Russian partnership. But Russia is all of a sudden by far the little brother, the weaker part of that partnership. And what does Russia look forward to? I think Russia is going to be in a position of looking to other opportunities, maybe not just to be a vassal and wholly owned by China. Maybe Russia will look for other peaceful opportunities in the world. So Putin, his ability to get out of a tight corner, don't ever underestimate that. But he's a realist. And as you point out,
you want Americans to understand that Trump's engagement with Putin is really designed to put a crack between he and yes. China, because China is by far the world's biggest threat right now.
I mean, I think there's a reason that Donald Trump isn't trash talking Vladimir Putin. The American left says, oh, it's because you love Putin, you love dictators, or you're soft on Russia. If you look at his policies, in fact, he's been much tougher on Russia, whether it's on sanctions.
That's true. Term one, he killed him on sanctions. On oil pipelines, et cetera. But he doesn't trash talk him. Why? Because President Trump understands that at the end of the day, he's going to want a negotiation with that guy. Harder to negotiate with a man who has a huge ego like Vladimir Putin if you've been calling him a bunch of names. That's true. In general, I don't see President Trump calling very many people names this go around. And it's kind of like, I don't know if he's just like, okay, I kind of understand where I'm at, got my boundaries down, everything's good, I don't need to worry about it. Or if he's just a kinder, gentler version of himself. But I kind of like the guy that sits there and lets the little guy from the Musk family lip off to him and he doesn't get all that worried about it. I think it's kind of cute.
He's a man with a purpose. I think the assassination attempt really, I've seen him since then. Others who are with him on a daily basis said it's really changed him. He's a man with a mission, and he's a little less concerned about the slights. First of all, who are his enemies at home, right? There's no media. They kind of withered. There's no Democrat Party. I mean, there's a bunch of 80-year-olds who have to walk around in walkers.
And they don't know what they believe.
So there's no unified opposition. The only unified opposition would be in the bureaucracy. And Elon Musk and Doge are taking a sledgehammer to that. So at home, President Trump has never been more popular than when he's elected. And all of the potential adversaries who would try to trash, sabotage, they're not there anymore. This is such a huge win for President Trump that I think he goes from victory to victory. And then when the economy kicks in, as it did with Reagan after 18 months, 24 months into the Reagan first term, when we have economic prosperity, a lot of opposition just melts away.
What do we do with all this money that we're finding?
Well, I think at a minimum, we start cutting the federal budget. It means we have to, we don't have to borrow as much. People don't realize that we're borrowing money that we don't have to pay for stuff that we now realize we don't need. And we're borrowing it from countries that don't like us. So we're giving a lot of leverage to our bankers.
And I'm sorry, all of that sounds like a bad deal to put transgender Sesame Street on in Iraq. I don't understand the thinking behind that. Why would we take out loans to do that?
Or why would we take out loans where it turns out that maybe as much as 20% of Medicare and Medicaid are frauds? We're giving Medicare to people.
Don't you know,
who are
KT, we have
120
like
years old.
100 people that are over 300 years old that are collecting Social Security this month.
Well, it's obviously it's more than one crook in the thing. It's not just one guy who's deciding to keep Grandpa's Medicare payments going. This is a wide, there's a big time fraud operation.
We just got a check for Alexander Hamilton. I didn't know he could still draw Social Security. Okay, KT McFarland, always appreciate your insights. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Kevin McCullough coming right back from Times Square. Don't touch that.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back, Kevin McCullough. Glad to have you with us. That Kevin Show. And we are so thrilled to be able to help children that have nothing to eat and nothing but really dirty, gross water to drink. We're thrilled to be able to give them a new opportunity to have clean, fresh drinking water and delicious, nutritious food. Some rice, some beans, sometimes a little bit of chicken or goat that goes with that. But it's something that will fill their belly, give them protein and carbohydrates so that their body can grow, and it gives them a chance at a better life. And friends, if we don't do it, they will die. Most likely this year. The kids that are on this list, that's how serious it is. Paul Jacobs is back with us from Food for the Poor. And Paul, I remember when we visited a little place called Cadwa, Haiti. It's, I don't know, an hour or so. Well, the drive was an hour or so outside of Port-au-Prince. And then we walked about another hour into the place where they didn't have a road built yet. And there a pastor was trying to hold a little school class and teach the kids some things. And next to the school, out back behind the building, there was this little, I don't know, maybe a 4x4 size little cesspool. I mean, I don't know how you describe it. It wasn't like a flowing water source, but there was a little gathering of water, and there were dogs doing their business and running through it, and there were children that were playing in it. And I think that one child tried to take a drink out of it, and it was horrifying to me. And this was the water supply for this town. This was the main water supply for this town. And we asked questions of the pastor, and he said, "It is a miracle that you're here. You're an answer to prayer." And I came back and told my listeners about it, and you helped me tell that story. But a year later, you and I went back, and one of those children came up and grabbed me by the hand and took me over to the water filtration system. He had a little cup in his hand, and he took some of that water out. He swigged it. He wiped his mouth, and he said, "Mister, that's delicious water." And I thought, wow, what a difference this can make when people get involved.
Delicious water. Just think about the last time you had a bottle of water, you had something from your tap, or maybe you had a water fountain in a public place. Maybe it's on your job, and you took a sip, went back to your whatever you were doing. You didn't consider it was delicious water.
No.
Maybe you had you had a moment just to sit back, and you're thirsty, and you just didn't even think about it. Probably couldn't even tell me what it was. But for these families, desperate, waiting, every moment they were praying, asking God when, and then an answer came from a listener just like you to answer their prayer. This is why we're asking you right now for the next Kadwa, for the next community, for the next child that is awaiting patiently for that delicious water. You could be the answer right now.
855-349-4673, 855-349-4673, or go to instagood.org. Instagood is one of the most common hashtags on all of the social webs. because people want to do good. Well, if you want to do instant good, go to instagood.org and give a gift right now. Because when you do, we have a special matching challenge that's underway. If you give a gift right now, it will be doubled in impact. So if you give a gift of $160 to feed 2 children through Food for the Poor, 2 children that will not eat otherwise, they will not have clean, nutritious drinking water otherwise, they will have those polluted sources, they will have that polluted source of water. But if you give right now, twice the impact, twice as many kids helped, twice as much food, twice as many meals, and clean drinking water for all of them. Everyone that we get to is going to have clean drinking water going forward. 855-349-4673, 855-349-4673. Paul, I want to narrow down on something that we were talking about there, though, because the source of clean drinking water, when you have parasites and things that are in the water, it's not just the dehydrating effect of having bad water that kills people. Many times it is the germs and the parasites and the things that are in that water, chemicals from machinery or waste products from animals or other things that work its way into the child's system. And when you're trying to survive life with an immune system that's badly damaged because you've been malnourished for most of your life, you have no immune system to fight it with. And so an intestinal bug that you and I might get over in just a day, not feel very good, but be back at work the next day, will take their life. It'll send them into comas, and they never wake up again. I mean, this is a really cruel. Having no access to clean water is one of the cruelest ways to die. And yet there are children that die every year. And we can prevent that if people get involved right now.
It's interesting when you just take a walk with me back to our trip to Haiti, where Kevin and I visited all of these communities. One of the common things that you see in children in these communities where they do not have proper nutrition, they're not eating every day, and of course the water is just filthy, is you see children with these severe runny noses, sometimes crusting right below their nose. We've all seen this in our children. I mean, Kevin, your kids, you just take a little napkin out there, and and mom's probably got something ready at the ready, and just wipes the nose, and you keep it moving. But in Haiti, it is a sign of something more severe. It is a sign of a respiratory illness that has been brought on by a weakened immune system. It's a respiratory illness that, quite frankly, because the immune system is so compromised, and because these children are not getting the nutrition they need, and that next cup of water will be just as dirty and polluted as the last, that these children, for a common cold, could be life-threatening. And so we're asking you right now that because your gift is going to help provide food, provide nutrition, make sure these children are drinking water that is not going to make them sick with every sip, that you are saving a life. Don't take that lightly. You are saving a life of a child, or 4 or 25 with $1,000 gift. And I know you probably just said to yourself, where am I going to get this $1,000 that you talk of? I want you to consider not the money, but I want you to consider 25 children whose lives have been put back on track because your compassion and generosity took front and center today.
Yeah, friend, and if you can do those larger gifts, and I have many people that watch and listen that are able to do that, your gift, your impact will be doubled right now. So why not give that big gift and help as many children as possible? We know of 100 right now that have not been helped that were on our list from late last summer, and we want to make sure that before we even get out of the first quarter of this year, that we've assured their parents, those kids, hey, you're not going to starve to death this year. We're going to make sure you have clean drinking water and healthy, nutritious food at least twice a day for the coming year. An $80 gift delivers 750 meals. Come on, people. This is doable. We can help children right now.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
You have no right tried to take away Social Security benefits from millions of Americans over 120 years old. That's right, it's a constitutional crisis. That's right, Maxine. It's a threat to our democracy.
Chuck, there is clearly evidence of fraud happening in Social Security. How else do you explain the checks going to people 140 years old? Who are these people supposed to be, vampires?
Not exactly. But the answer is actually much simpler than fraud. You see, there are things in this world, dead things, many of them relying heavily on disability checks.
Chuck, if dead people are receiving disability checks, that's fraud.
Let's just say because someone is dead, that doesn't mean they're no longer eligible for Social Security.
Are you guys trying to say there are ghosts receiving benefits?
It's the only logical explanation besides fraud, which is clearly unlikely.
Can you prove it to me?
Yes, we can. Meet us at the Congressional Cemetery tonight at midnight. Maybe once you meet someone who depends on Social Security checks, you'll change your mind about cutting them off. Go ahead, Elizabeth. Right. Stopping fraud in Social Security is somehow anti-democracy.
Who dares disturb my gay kissing? Oh, it's you. Where the hell is my Social Security check? I have bills to pay, you know.
I'm working on it, Benjamin. You see, Elon, without Social Security payments, homosexual ghosts like Benjamin Martin can't afford to eat.
Wait a minute. You're stopping my benefits because you think it's impossible to be 130? I'm 287 years old. You must be an idiot. Thank God I have highly ethical geniuses like Elizabeth Warren and Chuck Schumer to watch my back, or who knows what else you do.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McFarland.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as votes for Damas.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Still to come, the man who makes you laugh with sketch comedy almost on a weekly basis here on That Kevin Show. The inimitable Nick Peterson. A little bit later, what is Gather 25 all about? Jennie Allen has the details. And Lindsay L. is back in the spotlight. And now, from Times Square, he's a man who had his private contract canceled by the Department of Government Efficiency. Here's That Kevin! David, that's simply not true. I've never had a housing contract or anybody else with a contract with the government. And I'm glad I didn't. I don't want to be wasting the taxpayers' money. Hey, let's get to the news instead. What do you think? For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough. The Department of Government Efficiency has reportedly found yet more billions in wasted funding through the guise of COVID relief. Among the monies misspent by the Department of Education in the states of Utah and California totaled close to $2 billion. One school blowing $86,000 on a strip of Las Vegas hotel rooms. Another one over $390,000 on renting out an entire Major League Baseball stadium. A school. Parties, food, questionable ladies, all were high-priced expenditures granted from the COVID funds and no accountability and just flying out the door. But monies were also set aside so that Dr. Anthony Fauci could perform sex change surgeries for animals. Also, the most infamous non-office holder in America, in American politics, ranked in close to $2 billion trying to convince Georgians as to the merits of global warming. Former Biden officials have issued stern warnings to the Democratic Party against looking like a, quote, Portlandia parody. By this, Assignment Desk Weekend has learned the warning pertains to policy and personalities, forgetting full well that this guy was in the Biden administration. Media outlets are struggling to make sense of what Trump's plan to abolish the IRS would mean to, quote, everyday people, Assignment Desk Weekend is not surprised at the confusion, as Main Street media outlets have practically never understood a Trump plan until after it was working. So we'd like to clear this up for you. Abolishing the IRS means you get to keep a whole lot more of the money you earn. And finally, the staff of Senator Mitch McConnell has announced the longtime senator from Kentucky won't run for re-election. When Assignment Desk Weekend tried to get a follow-up question answered, we were told that it would be impossible, and we asked why, and we were told for the same reason that he wasn't running again. Evidently, McConnell has glitched while standing in the middle of the hallway in the Senate, and they have no time estimate on when he might unglitch. For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Calvin McCullough.
Wait, you wrote that me and you were running to see Jesus' empty tomb, but you ran faster. I can see John being faster than you. Shut up, carrot doodle. Yeah, I beat you there by a good 30 feet. I don't remember that, but even so, I feel like you being faster is an unnecessary detail in the story of the resurrection. Yeah? Well, write your own book. I want to start by talking about the nicknames that Jesus gave you guys. I'm not feeling well. Oh, no. You're staying for this. I don't think I ever had any kind of nickname. That's because people give nicknames to people that they like. Thank you. That is true, though. Nobody likes a tax collector. I'm sitting right here. You guys can see me, right? This is how little we trusted you as a tax collector. You were clearly the best with money, but we made Judas, who's known for stealing money, the group treasurer. All right. First off, y'all are making fun of the educated one here with a career. And I'm pretty sure in Acts, Luke called you, Peter, what? Unschooled? So, Peter, what Luke meant by that was a very nice way of calling you stupid. I know what that means, Judas. Thank you so much. You're welcome. Speaking of stupid, you betrayed the savior of the world for 30 pieces of silver, right? Well, Peter denied him 3 times. Thanks, man. If I'm going down, you're going down with me. That's fine. But you know why Jesus changed my name from Simon to Peter? He actually calls you Simon Peter at times. And you know the old saying, never trust somebody with 2 first names. Okay. No. Anyway, he named me Peter because Peter means rock. And he said that I would be the rock on which he built his church. Or, and hear me out, it could come from the saying, dumb as a rock, which makes more sense for an unschooled person. Okay, pop quiz smart guy. Who's the only other person in history to walk on water? You walked on water for 2 seconds, then the wind scared you and you went under. Oh, maybe that's why Jesus named you Rock, because you sink like one. There's that education. Watch out, he'll cut off your ear. Oh, look who's talking. Hey, your name is synonymous with, what was it? Oh yeah, conniving backstabber, right? Yeah, dude, you ruined a name forever. No parent would ever name their child Judas now because of you. Okay, let's not forget that there are other Judases in the New Testament. And the whole bad connotation surrounding my name could be because of something they did. It's you. Definitely you. 100%. Okay, well, he also called me a friend at one point. So, Jesus literally called you a devil. No, well, he said one of you is a devil. So it's unclear who he's talking to. 100%. Really? Because if I recall, he told you to get behind me, Satan. No, well, you're taking that out of context. Oh, context matters when you're called the devil? Yeah, well. To be honest, I'm just kind of glad my name doesn't live in infamy as an insult. Nimrod kind of got the shaft there. I don't want to sound like I'm bragging or anything, but since we're talking nicknames, I am known as the disciple that Jesus loves as the brother. So choke on that. Yep, that sounds a bit like you're bragging. I am. I just didn't want it to sound like. Wait. What was it that Jesus called you and your brother? Oh yeah, he called y'all like the boys of summer or something. What? No. He called me and James the sons of thunder. Dorks. Sounds like a ring name for an amateur Mexican wrestling duo, but locally known as Los Hijos de Trueño. How you say me give you pile driver in Spanish? Okay. All right. I want to change gears for a minute, but before we do, I want to thank our sponsor, Delilah's Hair Salon. Get a haircut while you nap at Delilah's. All right. Let's talk about these books that we wrote. Not you, obviously. Are we going in the order in which they're presented? Because I'm first. I'm first of the Gospels. I'm the first taste people get of the New Testament. Yeah, and you started it out with a long list of lineage. Sounded like an Arabic phone book. A real hook for our first-time readers. Well, I wrote it by myself, which is more than you can say. Says who? Says you. in 1 Peter. Oh, you couldn't write it yourself because you're unschooled. You wrote, with the help of Silas, at the end of 1 Peter. Did I? Shoot, I shouldn't have done that. While you illiterate Nimrods argue over who had a ghostwriter, Nimrods, see? I'd like to point out that I authored 5 books. Because you're a Paul wannabe. Burn. And yet, with that big head of yours, you could still only come up with the titles John, 1 John, 2 John, 3 John. Who cares? What was your 5th book? Was it that romance novel, The Boys of Summer? All right, Sons of Thunder. And are you done, John? You wrote the 2 shortest books in the Bible, 2 John and 3 John. 3 John was 200 Greek words. He was like, for my next book, a haiku. Concerned that your response.
Ready or not, we'll be right back.
I have a feeling you just don't get too far.
That Kevin.
You see that? No. What was it?
Now, back to that Kevin show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. Well, if you've been watching or listening to this show for any length of time, you know that we like to, I don't know, have a little more fun than some people in the conservative media realm. And almost every week, we want to make sure that at some point in time, no matter how bad the headlines are, and no matter how important the issues are, that we're delving into a little bit of something that'll give you a giggle. Because life is too short not to have one, at least every now and then. And someone who has become a fast fan favorite around these parts is the comedian Nick Peterson, and he joins us now. Nick, it is a pleasure to welcome you officially for the first time as a guest to That Kevin Show.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
If people watch your stuff, and I want them to go to YouTube, The Nick Peterson, Instagram, The Nick Peterson, go look at the stuff. But if you've watched over the last few months, you've seen some of Nick's work here. What inspires you? What drives you when you're sitting around having your cup of coffee on Monday morning and you're sketching out? Okay, I want to do a couple of pieces this week, but I don't. The page is blank. Where do you go for your inspiration to start pulling on?
Yeah, good question. Really, it's all about bringing people joy, right? That's what drives me. Certainly don't do it for the money. So it's all about making people happy. And I think over the last I've been doing them for about 8 years. And I've dived in a little bit more in the past couple years and honed in on what I think people seem to enjoy the most. And that seems to be Christian content and political content. And finding, what's missing is a lot of Christian humor. I think a lot of people think, and I get a lot of comments that, my videos, my Christian content is blasphemy. And I think it's because they're so used to anything Christian related being so serious. And I spend a lot of time and effort to make sure that I have everything factually correct, and then I weave in the comedy from there. So I try to find those holes.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because I think it was Seinfeld that said this, but there's truth in every comic. And in fact, truth is what drives the most comedic elements of most comedy, because it's either an exaggeration of a truth or it's a narrowing down to seeing a truth that maybe you don't see on the surface easily. But there's something inherently just that people just know on the inside shouldn't be the way it is, and then comedy shines a light on it and goes, "Hey, guess what?" And it's almost like an emotional release when you stumble across it. You did a 3 minutes, which is your 60 minutes parody of CBS's show, and you did one on Zelensky, and some of the questions that you posed to him. Average people have sat there and thought these very questions, and to just even have somebody symbolically sitting there and posing the questions, I think brought a lightness to people's heart, because they're like, yes, somebody gets it. Somebody understands me a little bit better than what the current media scene seems to.
Right. I did a whole series of those with Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. And that was kind of the theme there, was to try to ask the questions that the American people are really asking, and that journalists won't. So and then you spin the humor from there.
They weren't willing to in the previous administration, I think. So let me ask you this: does the new administration make things harder because they're going to try to play by a more honest set of rules? Do you think?
For comedy, yes. Yes. And I think the whole last administration was a whole lot easier to pick on, too. So
yeah, well, they gave you a lot of material. People have asked me all the time, Kevin, would you rather have Trump or Biden in office? And I said, well, from what's good for the country, I want Trump to be there. But he makes my job a lot harder because the day he gets elected, I don't have the funny clown show to talk about anymore. And that's what I've had a lot of fun with. When you go outside the political realm, because you've done spoofs on The Chosen, you've done parodies on Bible characters having podcasts. There's a wide variety of stuff. Do you sit and think well, how would Esau respond to Abraham in a discussion about birthright as opposed to Isaac? What is the variance here? And do you do some method of getting in their heads as you're writing the scripts?
Absolutely. So first thing I do is always go to the Bible and I start reading the story, and I read through the story, make sure I have all the facts correct. And then I'll go online. I'll read articles. I'll read any kind of, any information there that can help me expand on the characters. And so usually I keep it to 3 or 4 characters, and that allows me to kind of sit in their shoes and, how would they respond, like you said, or, what would they say in this situation that would be funny. And so sometimes I think it's probably closer to the truth than, we got to remember that they were people too.
Yeah, and I think that when you've come out of just an entirely churched background and thinking about these, I think they've been largely sanitized. Did Moses pick his nose? Probably, but does anybody ever think about that? It's not necessarily edifying, but he probably did. Right. Who knows? Something else that's a signature of yours, and I think this is one of the most important elements in comedic delivery, whether it's sketch, whether it's stand-up, whether it's a script that's written for film, timing in the delivery, how the lines are delivered, and the timing of the interaction from one character to the next. You seem to do that at an exceptionally higher level than almost any comedic source that is out there. And I really think that coupled with your kind of dry sense of humor is one of those things where even if you watch one of your sketches one time, you miss out on some of the stuff because there's so much loaded in there. Did you always have that sense of comedic timing, or was that something you learned and worked on over the years?
That's something definitely learned over the years. Not only in I plan it now ahead of time, but also in editing too. And that was, something that takes some time. Learning how to, chop up a comedy skit, and there's some skill in that, that's something you definitely have to learn. So, but yes, I plan it all from the get go. Every look, every pause, every joke. And, that's why they take me a little bit longer to make. I'm not able to crank out content on a daily basis. It can take me 3-4 weeks. The one I'm working on now has been about a little over a month. So, wow. It's just it's the way it goes. But I prefer to put out something that is, like you said, packed with content and comedy, as opposed to something that's just filmed on a cell phone and cranked out in a couple hours. Yeah.
There seems to be an entirely new kind of swath of comedic input that's coming primarily through the internet. This is one of the reasons why I want to take your stuff and amplify it to TV and radio, because I think more people need to know about it. But the internet has allowed some really kind of hidden talents to be discovered. I'd love to know if there are people that you watch, that you learn things from, and just observing how they do their craft. And we'll take a break here, and when we come back, I want to know also what were your comedic influences growing up? Did you have a healthy dose of SNL? Were there stand-up guys that you liked? Where did the inner sanctum of Nick Peterson's brain originate from? We'll get into all of that on the other side of this, and of course, we be watching, because on assignment desk weekend and in our cold opens, sometimes Nick's work, the handiwork, is there. We are very, very proud to put that forward and encourage you to check out his work and tell others about it.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back, Kevin McCullough. Glad to have you with us. Nick Peterson, the comedian, my guest. And if you've seen any of his stuff, you know that there's layers and layers and layers of comedic skill that is built in with that. And Nick, one of the things I love asking musicians is, what musicians were you influenced by as you're becoming good at your craft? I like to ask the same questions of actors and comedians as well. And I have to think that there were people that greatly influenced you in your time at getting good. And when I say this, friends, I'm not blowing smoke at anybody. Nick is really one of the best guys out there at this whole sketch, self-produced comedic element. You can search the internet, you see a lot of things. None of them are as good as the Nick Peterson on YouTube and Instagram. But when little Nick was running around, who did you watch? What were you influenced by?
Great question. I didn't really grow up watching much stand-up. I will say I did like the blue-collar comedy guys, Bill Engvall and Ron White and those Larry the Cable Guy. But other than that, I've really recently been into, I appreciate Nate Bargatze. He's a clean comedy. I always appreciate clean comedy. It's
actually a better craft, because it's so easy to just go down the path of whatever the least resistance is. And when people work really hard at being clean, they're usually having to be very hard at being intelligent, and there's just so much effort put into the elevation of the medium at that point.
Sure. Yeah. Writing a joke or timing or anything like that, you don't fill with, filth or anything like that. So you gotta work on it a little bit harder. Sure.
Yeah. Are there sketch people that you look to in terms of people that was SNL an influence in your life growing up?
Never watched SNL. No, maybe seen it a handful of times in my life. Never found it super funny, to be honest. John Crist is a good Christian comedian that I do like watching. He used to do a lot of sketches before he jumped into a lot of stand-up. Trey Kennedy is another good one, clean comic. I really appreciate those guys that, keep it clean. So, but no, there's not a lot of people that I would say influence my type of comedy. I did love The Office. I love that type of dry, humor. And I try to implement that. I personally think it's funny. So
You've
I'm not
never
a
done an
slapstick
Office
guy.
parody. I'm a little surprised at that, because it seems like that would be right up Nick Peterson's alley.
Yeah, that's. I have done one for work once, but no, I've never done one. I don't think for my own personal. No.
So what is the day job? If comedy isn't paying your bills, what do you do for real?
Yeah, I own a few franchises in the Philadelphia region. Orange Theory Fitness. So nice. They keep me busy, but they also give me the flexibility to work on my hobbies, which is this. And so yeah.
Do you ever get approached by people that have seen your stuff and either just hate it and they want to take your head off, or they really want to know like what's coming out next?
Yeah, absolutely. Some people that I associate with at church or, at work, they're always following along. A lot of my buddies, of course, my family. But I don't really have anybody that's approached me and, cornered me, not liking my content. I do live in a very blue area, so I'm surprised. But, with the political comedy. But no, everything's been fine there. So.
Can you give us a sneak peek on what's coming up for Nick Peterson in the next few weeks?
Yeah, we're currently working on a Squid Game parody, and it's called Leftist Games, and so it should be fun. I'll have it out in the next couple of weeks.
That's incredible. Would you ever consider taking the show on the road and doing something in a live setting, or have you thought about that?
I would love that. I don't have those connections, or I don't know who to speak to about that. But yeah, my door's always open, and open.
Well,
to
I think it would be
ideas.
fantastic to welcome you at some point to Radio City Music Hall here in New York, and just have a night with Nick Peterson and do whatever you could dream up for a stage show, because I think it would be great. And if I can be of help, we'll try to make that happen as well. But friends, I really do want you to go and check out Nick's YouTube channel, check out his Instagram. If you find the work funny, share it and get more people to see it, because that's the way that someone like Nick really makes the biggest impact. And I'm guessing, Nick, that's kind of the bottom line. You are trying to, in your unique way with your skill set, impact the world for a good cause.
Absolutely. Everybody needs humor and joy. And so I'm trying to grow and get out there and, make more people laugh.
There you go. Can't be any harder than that. Nick Peterson, thank you as always. And hopefully we'll talk to you again soon. Be well.
Thank you.
Kevin McCullough coming right back from Times Square. Don't go away.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com for all things related. That Kevin Show on all socials. You get the general idea. It's easy to find. That's why we made it that Kevin Show. I'm very honored to have my next guest, who I've never spoken with before, but I know she's had a big impact, and she has an event coming up that she hopes is going to be global in terms of its reach and impact on people. Her name is Jennie Allen. She's a Bible teacher, author, and she is one of the founders, the visionary behind that IF gathering that you may have heard of a number of years ago. But now she's the head of a new thing called Gather 25, and she joins us here. Hello, Jennie. Welcome.
Hey, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you. What is it about today's culture that you are most concerned about?
Wow. Well, I would say the opposite. What am I most encouraged about? Because I have been spending my time on college campuses with a ministry called Unite, and we have been speaking to thousands and thousands of students all over the United States, and it is incredible. They are wanting a relationship with God. They want to know what it looks like to live in a more full way. It's not reflective of what we hear a lot about Gen Z.
These aren't Christian campuses. These are mainline.
These are secular.
Yes.
Every campus we've been on is a secular college, and it's been miraculous in my mind. I'm so encouraged at what is happening right now in America with college students specifically, but then with Gather 25, we're going to show the globe. We're going to show what God's doing all over the earth. And when we do, it is going to blow everybody's mind, because the same things that are happening on college campuses here are happening in Africa, in Liberia. We're going to show it. We're going to show it in Germany. We're going to show it in London, all over planet Earth and Oceania. It's miraculous, all that God is doing right now.
I'm getting word from different regions of the world about the work of God and what's happening in different places and how different groups of people are being touched and moved. And I can't divorce that even from what's been happening here over the last number of years in America. I think the students are kind of the tip of the spear in terms of what you see in terms of personal, what probably starts out as anxiety and concern, and then that turns into searching and looking. But what they're finding is actual truth that they're able to hold on to, and something that actually feeds them in a way that stuff hasn't in the past. And even to the degree, and I'm not one of these people that, my savior is my savior, my president is my president. I keep the two separated. But there's so much going on in the culture. When you had the attack on gender in the schools, when you had the overt confusion that was trying to be populated, even between the sexes and everything else. And what I think you've seen is a very sharp correction of people turning towards wanting to know what is true. Yeah. And I think when it comes to the ultimate truth,
Gather 25 has the potential to say, hey, not only is there a God, but you were made by him and you were made to flourish and purpose because of him. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a desperation, and I don't think it's limited to college students right now. I think all of us feel it, and we want there to be something more. I mean, COVID, if there's one thing COVID taught us is that, man, we are not in control. and there is a release when it comes to that if we let it be that, or there's a fear. And I think that fear has grown. And I think what it does when you really believe that God is real and he loves you and sees you and he has a plan for your life, no matter what our circumstances are here, then there's a hope and a fire that starts to grow. And I'm watching these students and there's such a zeal. But when we go live February 28th for Gather, we're going to begin in the United States. We're going to move to New Zealand and show Oceania. We're going to move to, all the way to Peru. We're going to go to Rwanda, London, Cluj, Romania, and Malaysia. And we're going to see on earth that God is moving so powerfully. And I think what's going to happen is the church is going to be lit ablaze. We are part of a big and winning team. We are connected across the world, whether we believe different things doctrinally or not. There are 2.5 billion people that say they love Jesus. 2.5 billion. That is a lot of people. Our team is big. Our team is strong. God is moving in every part of the world, and people are coming back to him. And for many, the first time, when we're talking to these college students, they don't have church hurt. They're not coming from a lot of baggage. They just are desperate for something that makes their life mean something, and they found it in Jesus.
I've actually spoken with a few pastors here in the New York tri-state area that have talked about the effect since COVID's been over, that they have seen more fruit for the ones that are more evangelistically minded, that are actually concerned about getting the gospel to people and telling them the good news, that they have seen more fruit in this window of time than ever before in their work. And I think that that's really encouraging for people. Now, it's called Gather 25. It's going to be a 25-hour event, but it's also held in 2025. So 25 is kind of a cool number to tack on there. Talk to us, just give us the thumbnail of what the program is going to be made up of and what people can expect, and then how to join it.
Absolutely. Well, you're going to see stories from all over the world. You're going to hear the best preaching from every continent. You're going to hear worship. Many names if you go to our website, gather25.com, you can see that. But you can tune in wherever you are. In fact, we invite you to host a group wherever you live, and just have some friends over. But you can do it. You can watch it on your phone, by yourself. We just want you to be there. It will not be a gathering of the global church unless you are there. So we are inviting every single person that loves Jesus to come. And even if you don't love Jesus, we hope that you'll participate. And I think you'll be really encouraged in these 25 hours, because it's hard to deny, that God, when you're watching the same things happening in Africa, the same things happening in Europe, the same things happening in the US, you go, okay, this isn't man. We didn't get together and make a plan here. This is the Lord moving. And so I think everybody is going to be blown away. Your faith is going to grow. You're going to be strengthened and encouraged by what God is doing on earth. And I think it's going to give everybody a lot of hope. So you go to gather25.com and just say, I'm in. And if you want to host an event, click that box. And it can be as small in your living room or your church. We have churches all over the world hosting over 3,000 events happening in Africa right now. It's wild. We really are on an adventure here, but we would love for anyone listening to be a part.
Yeah. So churches, small groups, Sunday school classes, home study groups, homeschool groups, gather your friends, gather your neighbors, bring them together for Gather 25, gather25.com, you said?
Yes. And this is for every man, woman, and child. I would say put your kids in front of a screen and you'll feel like you just took them around the world. They're going to understand the global church better than anyone if they participate.
Stick around for more of That Kevin next.